take a moment to I'd like to take a moment to welcome our speaker, Jonathan Juravich, sorry, a visual arts teacher from Powell, Ohio. Welcome, Jonathan.
Hi, everybody. Thank you so much. Amina, also from Pittsburgh originally, so hello. But I'm so excited to be here with all of you today. I'm going to be sharing my screen here in a minute. So let me do that awkward moment where we share. It's all going to be fine. Okay. So what I'm going to share about today, the title of the presentation that we're going to do is Take Care, Supporting Our Fellow Educators and Ourselves. It's that time of year, right, where school is coming to a close and there are so many emotions and feelings and experiences. And I'm just really happy to be here today to share some of the ideas and things that I do with my own staff here at my school, as well as with some statewide initiatives we've done that hopefully will spark some interest, your creativity. And at the very last slide, I will also have my email, my social media, just like this. So if you are ever thinking like, oh, I love that idea, or I want to know more about that, or can you send me a template, please just reach out. I would love to share those things with you. So I am an art teacher. I am a K-5 art teacher in my 19th year of teaching in Powell, Ohio, at a great school called Liberty Tree Elementary School. And there are about 650 kids at my school this year, and we're one of 17 elementary schools in my district. Also within my school and district, I am in charge of building culture and awareness at our school of Liberty Tree Elementary, or building culture and environment, sorry. And that means that I work with the staff and the students to focus on how the school functions, how the student and staff well-being. In addition, I'm also the district department chair for elementary art. So I work with our 24 elementary art teachers to support them in that role as well. I could tell you more about myself, but I actually want to share with you a resource that you can take and use. I took it from my friend, Michelle Cottrell-Williams, who actually teaches sociology in Virginia. And she uses this poem structure to support her students as they're talking about vulnerability and identity. And what she does is she shares with them this structure to discuss who they are in terms of the stereotypes, who they're not. Just because I'm blank doesn't mean I blank, doesn't mean I blank, doesn't mean I blank, I am, and then that counterpunch. So to give you an example, here's mine. Just because I'm an art teacher doesn't mean I organize in rainbow order. Look behind me, right? It's all brown and green, like one. Doesn't mean I organize in rainbow order. Doesn't mean I love glitter. It doesn't have a home here. Right? Doesn't mean I like using clay. That's sensory things. I'm invested in fostering an environment where everyone feels welcome to be themselves. So what I've done here is I've chipped away at some of those stereotypes that people have of art teachers that they've met or seen on Instagram, or teachers that they've had, while revealing to you more about myself. I have to tell you, when I did this with a statewide arts group, it was kind of like we were speaking gospel truth. Art teachers are like, doesn't mean I want to make your bulletin board for you. Doesn't mean I want to make that poster, right? Doesn't mean I'm going to share my supplies. It was really cathartic for them to get those things out. Now, we don't have a ton of time, but I'm going to turn the tables. Who are you? I want you to take just a couple minutes, really just like 2. Start scrawling out on a Post-it note or typing a note in your phone and think about this for yourself. And it doesn't have to be your identity as an arts coordinator or an artist. It could be just because I'm a dad, just because I'm an older sibling. And chip away at that identity for yourself and see what it reveals for you. Now, it's going to be really hard for me to be quiet, but I'm going to do that for like 2 minutes and not continually interrupt you like I'm doing right now. So go ahead and do it. So normally this would be that moment where I would say, let's unmute ourselves and everybody share out some of their things. But we're in this new platform that we're still figuring out for webinars. So if you want to share any of your initial ideas in the chat for other people to share, to see, please do. If you don't, and this is something that's really reflective and personal for you, then that's okay too. I have to tell you that I think about this poem structure all the time. It helps me really kind of investigate who I am versus the stereotypes that people may just, you know, assign to me based off of what little they know about me. So, but please take this, use it. Of course, what I have to tell you is Michelle, when she's used this with students, it's done in a space where they've built community. It's done in a space where they have trust, and vulnerability has been a topic that they explore. So I actually did this with the entire staff at my school last year, and it was amazing because we identified our different roles in the building and how we have different ideas about who each other are. Well, one thing I haven't shared with you, but you may have seen on the first slide, is that in 2018, I was named Ohio's Teacher of the Year. Not art teacher, but teacher, general overall. And this is the picture that ran in newspapers, which shows that, you know, I'm enthusiastic, but also probably related to Muppets, right? Like, it's just who I am. And what's really interesting about this is the way that Ohio works is you learn ahead of time you're going to be named Teacher of the Year, and but no one else knows. The whole school is going to be called down for an assembly on social emotional learning, and then bam, this is what's going to happen, right? And so I was doing a lot of thinking about it, and the idea that being named Teacher of the Year is really funny because sometimes I don't feel like I'm the best teacher even in my hallway. There are so many educators and staff that work in this building that support students and help them grow and support one another. And how could I even stand in front of them and have that focus on me? So what I thought back to actually was the 15 years that I was a middle school cross country and track coach. And I had 1 year where I had this amazing group of humans as athletes, amazing humans, terrible runners, like the worst runners I have ever had the pleasure of coaching. And they were so nervous because we were going up against our rival team. And the night before, I kept thinking like, oh my gosh, what am I going to do to support these kids, to show them that I'm in it with them, that I'm here for them? And I thought back to these things. There's like spirit buttons. And it's like, oh, it would have been amazing if I had bought spirit buttons of all of these kids and I could wear them all and encourage them while they're running to show them that I'm in it with them, even though we're probably going to lose. Well, then I realized I'm an art teacher with a button maker. So I made a button of all of the athletes on my team. The starting pistol went off, the kids took off running. I jumped out of the woods as a good cross-country coach does, wearing this sweater vest in August in Ohio, sweating with all of their buttons. And 3 things happened. 1, kids like looked at me, they got weirded out and they ran away, right? Other kids like stopped and like looked for themselves, like, and I'm like, oh, keep going, this is to encourage you, right? And then there was, of course, the kids that just like shook their head like, oh, you're so weird, but you're my weird person, right? And they kept running off. We lost terribly, just so that you know, but they were encouraged. They knew that I was in it with them, that we were a part of a team. And I continued to do that for the next 10 years for the teams that I coached. Well, on that day that I was named Ohio's Teacher of the Year, I made this vest of all of the people that worked in our building. It's all of the staff, the people that worked in the kitchen, the office, the intervention aides. It was the front and the back covered with pictures of their faces. Because what I wanted them to know is whatever I did as Ohio's Teacher of the Year, I would bring them and their stories along. It wasn't just about my recognition, it was recognition for all of us, because I got the opportunity to talk about them and the amazing things that they do. But when we support our fellow art educators, what we have to remember is that teacher recognition matters. No, and it doesn't have to be big awards. It doesn't have to be a whole school assembly, but it's about how we care for the people that we work with. These are some things that I have heard over years and most recently in the copy room at my school. I'm going to become a Walmart greeter instead, right? Teachers are feeling these things, right? There isn't enough money in the world. I'm not losing it, I've lost it. You wouldn't understand, when really, like, we would. And then, of course, there's this one. Only 13 more years until retirement. Really counting things down. And the thing is that sometimes these people, they just need authentic care. It's worth noting at this moment that we're not talking about toxic positivity. I am sometimes accused of being toxically positive when really it's about my optimism. I'm an optimistic person. Maybe that's you too. But it's all about relationships. What I found is oftentimes that toxic positivity is given that name because there isn't a relationship there. We haven't put in the work to build that relationship so that the things I'm going to say, the ways I'm going to encourage you, the ways I'm going to connect with you are authentic. And that's really what we need. And so one thing to do is just start small. Call up our fellow educators and ask them how they're doing. Just giving them a phone call. I have 4 new elementary art teachers this year that joined our school district. And I sent them a message and said, hey, over the next week, I'm going to call each of you. And it's not because anybody's in trouble. It's not because I'm not even your boss. I just want to check in and hear how you're doing. Tell me about your days. Tell me about what you need. What resources do you need? Tell me what you're thinking for next year. They all knew that, so that when I called them, they were prepped and ready. They were excited to talk to me. I heard very vulnerably about their lives and what was going on and what they needed. And all it was a phone call. Don't you know that I received emails from each of them telling me how much that meant to them? So start small. The other thing, we have to tell each other we're proud of each other. Have you done this to another adult recently? I can almost assure you we haven't. But we say it to kids all the time, I'm proud of you for this, I'm proud of you for that. But by telling another adult that we're proud of them, it means something. Again, if that relationship is there. I had a teacher that was taking care of something for our school culture committee, and she was walking through and telling me everything she had done. And as she was leaving, I said, Sue, I'm really proud of you for stepping outside of your comfort zone and reaching out to those people and making something magical happen for us. And she was taken aback, almost speechless. She left the room without saying anything, and she came back later to tell me how much that meant to her, because it meant that I saw her, that I valued her. So just take a moment to tell people in your lives that you're proud of them. Or presenting about them, sharing their stories, giving them the opportunity to present. I just told you about Sue right now. I've shared with you about the teachers and the buttons, talking about these people and then telling them. So what I need to do after we're done here is I need to go tell Sue that I shared about her during this presentation, because it matters whenever we hear that too. That's one way that we can care for people. What about a surprise? I don't really love surprises myself. I love giving them to other people. I am not a throw surprise party person, but showing up at somebody's school with a coffee that they love, or, our one secretary loves Diet Coke, loves it. Bringing her in a 12-pack of Diet Coke on her desk. Flowers is an amazing way to support other people. French fries is the way to my heart. It's true. And a music teacher that I know and work with was out of school for a doctor's appointment, and she drove here and dropped off French fries to me. Getting to know our people, getting to know what they need, even if it feels very surface level, can help them feel seen and valued. So a couple ways we've done that. As Teacher of the Year for a year, I had the opportunity during the month of February to show up to schools across Ohio. I partnered with their principals and I brought a hot chocolate bar. Teachers love a good hot chocolate bar. It doesn't take much. You can buy things in bulk, and then it's an opportunity to sit and hear stories. So setting up hot chocolate, you could have hot tea, just getting a chance to connect with people. So I did it for the entire month, and then I brought it back to my own school. And so we have all the supplies here, and then occasionally I'll set it up on a 2-hour delay day or a teacher work day, just so that people have an opportunity to have a warm cup of cocoa. Sometimes that's all they need, and it's a way for them to open up. I also went to, whenever we had our professional development days as arts teachers, I had a chance to bring them all cocoa, which is really great. Or flowers. Okay, So over on the right, these are like little wine glasses from the dollar store. So you get like 8 to 10 in a pack. And then you hit up the grocery store, I'm Still Pretty flowers, buy a whole bunch of those for an inexpensive amount. And then I ride around the school with this little cart delivering flowers to people. We did it clearly in the midst of COVID hybridness, but then we also just did it a couple months ago and surprised teachers with flowers. People enjoy getting a nice little bouquet of flowers, and it's super simple. For these, I used a student's illustration of a lark. Our school mascot is the horned lark, very obscure, very specific. But we are the horned larks, and we made these door hangers and we made them blank so that way we could write different messages on them. We used them for birthdays where I wrote happy birthday and wrote their name, and we attached cookies to them. We've used them to welcome new people into the building and into the school district. So it's something super simple that you can make. You can even make them using cardstock in your own copier, or in this case, ordering a whole bunch of them from Vistaprint. So how else do we care for educators? We say thank you. We just say thank you, and we mean it, but we tell them why we're thankful. Just saying thank you or I appreciate you is great, but then telling them I appreciate you because of the way you stepped up. I appreciate you because of the way that you have made our team stronger. I appreciate you for the way that you spoke up when it was time to speak up. During the year after I was named Teacher of the Year, I had this vision that I wanted to send thank you cards to teachers all across the state of Ohio. And so what I did is I got lists from our Department of Education. I got lists from anyone and anywhere I could get them. For people that had worked on committees and people that were in leadership roles. And I started in August, and I wrote thank you cards to teachers all across the state of Ohio. I'd highlight them, I'd add their addresses. I wrote them at swim classes, I wrote them on airplanes, and I sent them out during Teacher Appreciation Week. Just so that people would get this handwritten note, maybe from someone they didn't even know, but someone who appreciated the work that they were doing. And so I did that and I sent them all out. I had like 20 kind of like form responses that were authentic, but I leaned into them and switched them out for people. And I know some of them were people I knew, and I heard that they were like really grateful for these notes. Well, I was presenting at a conference and I said my name, and this woman jumps up and goes, "It's you." Well, I had never met her, but I had sent her a thank you card. And she had kept it. It was a handwritten, written with Sharpie thank you card. And she had kept it and saved it. And it was on her bulletin board. And she's like, I never thought I'd get a chance to meet you. So doing something like that for our arts educators, but planning ahead. Notice I started in August and wrote all year. If you're like, oh, I have way too many people to work with, that's fine. Split up the list amongst other people you work with, or start now. Writing one card a day and keeping it off to the side and then being able to send them off. A handwritten note goes a really long way. I just got one from a student today and it meant a lot. Another way to do I'm thankful for you is we do this every year in November. It's kind of like a chain letter where we have a whole bunch of these notes copied that say I'm thankful for you. And then what happens is you get one, you write a note to somebody and you post it on their door, they get it, and then they write their thankful note to 2 other people. And then they write a thankful note to 2 other people, and 2 other people, and to 2 other people, until the whole school is taken care of within the month of November. Some of them are hilarious, some of them are very heartfelt, but what I love about them is they're posted outside doors for everybody to see. This way that the students see them, families that are coming in for conferences see them. We all get to read them as staff, and we get to appreciate one another, and for the students to see that we appreciate one another. I shared about this at a conference in Kansas, and a principal there, or a district level administrator there, said that they were going to do it where each person at their office wrote them to people in buildings and then would spread them that way. So even if it's something that you start spreading from an upper level down into each of the schools, it would be a really cool opportunity to give people a chance to thank one another, because that's what we need. During COVID though, I mean, when it first started, People reached out to me and like, you must be making so much artwork. Well, no, right? Do we remember those times? I was keeping my 2 children alive. I was teaching from a computer. Like nothing was normal. I wasn't making artwork. So all of a sudden I was like, okay, I need to create a plan, an assignment for myself. And I started making these little tiny funny portraits of staff that I worked with. And I used the hashtag teachers I am missing. And I would post the image and a little sentence about them that was a story. And I started sharing them and I really loved it. But I got to the end of the school year and I was like, I am done. I am done with everything. I am just done. This was great, right? Well, let's talk about the unspoken challenges of teacher recognition, shall we? Do you think that I got to every single person that works in my building? No, I didn't think that was a big deal, but it was. There were people that were kind of keeping track and noticed that there were people that weren't mentioned or noticed that there were people that weren't being highlighted. But instead of talking to me about that, they talked to other people about that. And that's hard, right? That was never my intention to make other people feel worse. And that's what happens with teacher recognition sometimes, unless we include lots of people. So ways around that, have the students do it. The following year, students drew portraits of everybody in the building, right? That would be a really great way to do that. Include other people. Like I said, the other people that work in the offices with you or that support you, including them all in those conversations and in your projects is a really great way to do that. But for me, it's also about having empathy for those people. And here's a resource for you. Understood.org is an organization that supports students and adults who learn and think differently. And on there, if you go in and type into the search bar, empathetic sentence starters, if you like my typing, there will be a PDF that comes up that prompts you to have empathetic conversations. I know that sounds really funny, but it's necessary. I've used these with students. I've printed them off. I even have them next to me. I've used them with other adults that I'm working with, but in a very much more authentic way, right? But they help prompt you to take the focus off of you and instead put the focus on the other person and their experiences. Again, really, really helpful with students, can be helpful with other adults. Maybe not in your home relationships as they begin to see, like, I know what you're doing. You're using that PDF again, right? But this is a great way to understand what our people are experiencing and what they're going through as well. Another way to do that is, again, to include the students. These are statements that we photocopied onto paper here at our school. And they are statements that we use within our building, self-talk statements for our students. And we had students use oil pastel and watercolor, and they covered them. And then we framed them for Teacher Appreciation Week and let each of them take one of these to frame and keep in their classroom. I keep mine by my phone, and mine is the one on the left. Nobody is perfect, so I am not perfect. It's a good reminder, especially when I'm on the phone or sending an email and it didn't get hit the way that I wanted it to, right? So including other people in it, like students. And it's so simple to run some copy paper through and create on top of it. We did this in a similar fashion when we took time to really look at our mission statement as a district. When my elementary art teachers were together, we took our mission statement that is hung in our classrooms that we see every day, but we refocused it on ourselves and our work specifically with students. We spent a whole hour drawing on this, focusing on it. What do these words mean to us? And at the end, each of the teachers displayed their work and we talked about it as a group. I don't think that we have ever really focused on our mission statement that much before, even though it's something that we see all the time. It's on our emails, and it gave us new purpose. And it was so incredibly simple to provide them with these materials and the time and space to really focus on who they are and their role in meeting this mission statement. Okay, so while we're talking about taking care, sometimes, like I said earlier, it's about giving people space. At our meetings, we have big news bench time. Big news bench time. And what I do for our department of elementary art teachers is I highlight a different bench from around the world. In this case, this lovely one from San Francisco. And it's time that we set aside for people to share about the great things that are happening, the challenging things happening, the wonderful things that are happening. but my team knows that in every meeting we have, that there will be big news bench time. And a bench because you welcome people to join you sitting on the bench. But it's a great space for people to be prepared to share information. Or my friend Laurel. My friend Laurel, who is an art teacher in my district, has a great focus. And that, I unshared. It took me to a website. Can you still see? Can you see? Okay. So
You can see
Laurel,
not full screen anymore, Jonathan.
oh no. Okay, well, we'll change it in a second. Is that okay?
Okay. Yep.
Okay. So Laurel has this gift of shopping on Amazon. And I think I accidentally clicked on it and it took us to Amazon for a minute there, right? And so leaning into the skills that our people have. Laurel loves to go shopping. She loves to buy things, to purchase things for her classroom. And so she stands up and gives us a short presentation about those things that she loves to purchase and buy. Not only does it uplift her, but it gives her an opportunity to share with her colleagues. We have another one, Lisa, who loves plants and collecting plants. And so giving her space and time to talk about plants. Everyone else in the group is excited because she is excited to share with us about the plants that she has. All of this goes back to this idea that I hold on to, is that mighty oaks from tiny acorns grow. It is my belief as an educator, as a leader, that people have potential. They just need that encouragement and that support to see that potential, to feel valued, and to continue to grow. Now, this is going to take us to a breakout, but can we do breakouts? Do we know?
So I don't think that we're going to be able to do breakouts for this session, but we do have a couple of options of what it could look like.
Oh, and this is not. Sorry, friends. Hold on. Okay. Is that full screen now, by the way?
You can still see the top bar there.
Okay.
But we're flexible humans, right?
Okay, so we'll just move forward. Is that the plan then?
So what we could do is, since we have a chat feature here, is the staff can participate in an overall discussion like we've done in the breakout sessions, and then any of the participants, you can go ahead and use the chat function, and you can respond to everyone by going to the bottom right corner of the chat, hitting on that blue box down arrow, and then clicking everybody to send the chat to, so that we can all see it. Otherwise, it'll just go to the host and panelist. But does that sound like a plan?
Sure. Sure. Let me get this back up and going. Oh.
Full screen again. Oh, you're muted, Jonathan.
Okay, sorry, everybody. It's like end of the school day craziness, you know, like there's announcements and things. So these are the two questions that even if we don't have a chance to do the breakout in the traditional form, what is one authentic way that I am supporting and caring for my teams of educators, as well as what is one new way that I want to try? And if you want to put those in the chat, we would love to see and hear those ways, even if it's not something that I shared, if it's something that prompts something for you or something exciting that you're doing to support the people that you work with. And maybe, Mitra, I can't remember what you just said. Do you want me just to keep going and people could write in the chat? Is that what we're doing, or?
Yes.
Okay.
And staff, if you also have responses that you want to include, I think that we can make this into a hybrid conversation between staff, and we can just, Jonathan, if you want to read responses from the chat, or I can do that as well.
Yeah. Yeah, the who are you? I have to tell you that every time I share that, it's one of the greatest resources because every time I share that who are you in all kinds of different contexts, people get emotional about it. People want to share. I'm always like, oh, I'm going to have to like, pull it out of people, but it's not true. Like everyone wants to share their home that they've created, and it's really beautiful. And the big news bench is something that has been really kind of life changing for us. And I have to tell you that sometimes it is really heartbreaking things that people share, but they know and are prepared for it. So it's not like they feel like they have to tell one person, they're able to tell multiple people. Thank you, Patrice, who said that she checks in regularly and gives them an opportunity to be heard. Yes, I love the sending of things to people. I actually have a list of the elementary and middle and high school teachers in my room. And even though I'm not their supervisor, I'm one of them. I highlight once I've sent them a little gift in the mail. And it's not necessarily their birthday, it's when I think of them or I see something or someone donates something that I think they'd really love. Oh, and Elizabeth, taking people out into nature. Stay tuned for the next portion.
Hey, Jonathan, it's Crystal here. Can you hear me?
Yes, hi, Crystal.
Hi. So as a part of the engagement team on AEP, we were really thinking about how to bring our network and partnership together to commune amongst one another, but outside of just like the typical engagement of like we're talking about a specific topic area and get to know about somebody's work, like just really engaging them just as being a human being. And so we hosted a cooking partnership meeting just recently in Denver where folks got to get together and cook together and then just, naturally create conversations, which was something new and different, but just we really wanted to really think about that authenticity of bringing people together. And, we all want excellent arts education for all students. And so like it was just natural to have those conversations about, things that are happening within their spaces, their learning spaces, and how they are adapting and trying to uplift those spaces. So it was really a great experience.
And Crystal, you brought up the main thing. Food is a connector. We come together around food. And I know that maybe with 200 people, as someone shared, is maybe not an option, but in your smaller groups, gathering people for food. I know that when my team, oh, I'm sorry about this. Whenever we get together, making sure that there is food and snacks, because like I said, with the hot chocolate, people stop and they talk and they reflect and they share.
Most definitely.
And Shauna's just talking about Einstein Bagels giving away their old bagels for free, or the day old bagels, not their old bagels. This is great. Well, continue sharing, please, because this is how we learn. As someone said, and it helps me remember things too. We do professional learning in the summer every year as an elementary art department, and I make it relevant to my team. I reach out to them. I see them. I hear them. I ask them to present at it. We're able to get graduate credit for our time together. And don't worry, there's also food. So bringing those people together for things like that is really important. So the buses, So if we can continue sharing in the chat, and I'm going to move on from focusing on other people to focusing on ourselves. And believe me, there's ways in this next portion where we also will be focusing on other people, but we're important too. We are, and it's something to believe, to put out into the world, and to value, because too often we're focused on the other people, and we need to save some of that optimism and love for ourselves too. So a main thing to talk about is self-regulation as adults. We talk about self-regulation with students. I do it all the time, about their impulse control, their stress management. Yes, even with first graders, we talk about our stress management, our self-discipline, our goal setting, our self-motivation, our organizational skills. But I'm sure that as you're reading those, there's some of you that are like, yes, also me, right? Also me. I get that. I'm also working on that, right? So, but self-regulation versus self-care is something to discuss and to unpack a little bit more. Self-care can become a distraction that gives us a break from our stress and the overwhelming things that we're dealing with. But unfortunately, the stress could still be there when we return. That's when the self-regulation piece comes in. I know for me, using an example as a teacher, I can't exactly take a self-care moment for myself in the middle of the day when I have 6 classes, 6 grade levels, and someone has just spilled paint all over the floor. What I need is a moment of self-regulation so that I don't say or do anything that I will regret later. So finding a corner to calm down in, taking a beat, taking a breathing strategy. So I want to share some of those ideas for our self-regulation and the care that we can provide ourselves. Please don't hear me wrong. There's nothing wrong with self-care, but we need both of these things to focus on both of these things. So I want to share with you a little bit of the work and ideas of Dr. Kim McComb. She is a friend of mine. She is a professor at Eastern Michigan University. And at one point we were having this conversation and she talked about this idea of accept, change, lead, and how those 3 mentalities really impact our work and how we care for ourselves and how we regulate for ourselves. And through that discussion, I've taken and then built my own ideas, pulling together again resources and thinking from other art educators as well as myself. So accept, right? Accepting. One of the things that we need to focus on is accepting that sometimes things are so far out of my control in this moment, and that's okay, right? Sometimes I just need to accept that I'm not the person to take care of this because it is so far beyond where I'm at. But other times I need to accept that I might be the right person to make the change. And sometimes that's hard as we're trying to focus on what is my role in this moment. So what do we do when we accept that this is our reality? We take a breath. We hit pause and we count down slowly from 5. I know that sometimes, and I've been in professional developments when people talk about breathing exercises, and I'm like, oh, here we go, right? But I have had so many moments in this past year alone where I have used these, not only myself, but then also use these for myself, for other teachers, as well as the students that I'm working with. So hitting pause between a feeling and a reaction, because that reaction is sometimes the thing that we regret later, or we wish we had handled differently. A principal that I worked with in Maryland, she talked about 4-7-8 breathing, and she would do this before meeting with in a parent conversation that she was really nervous about. She would breathe. See, now all of a sudden I'm like, she would breathe in for 4. Yeah, this is it. Sorry, I got distracted. Breathe in for 4, hold it for 7, and then breathe out slowly for 8. And then breathe in for 4 beats, hold it for 7, breathe out for 8. Just that action of those numbers was enough to really calm her down. And she would use it with students as well. Or elevator breathing. Elevator breathing, that idea that you're going up an elevator in a tall building and you breathe in and you hold it at a floor, breathe out. Breathe in, hold it at a floor, breathe out. Or the idea that once you get to the top floor, you breathe out really slowly as you make your way back down. So this idea of breathing. I have kiln room moments. I have moments when I step into my kiln room, not because I'm loading the kiln, not because I'm doing anything with clay, but because I need to breathe in peace for a second, right? or whatever that's in between classes. And I was like, oh my gosh, I've got another one coming, or this teacher said something to me that just hit in the wrong way. And I do need a dark, calm moment to myself. I go and stand in there just for a second. No, I'm not screaming really loudly because then everyone would hear that, but I'm taking a moment to myself. So whatever that might be for you, someone said about nature, and we'll get to that in a minute. This is accepting, taking a breath, doing something about it. But there are also wins to celebrate when we accept where we are at. There are things that we need to take a moment, and yes, there's frustrations and challenges, but we also need to just be pumped up and tell other people about the great things that are happening. And we forget to do that. Share them on social media. Do it. You could share about the things that the teams that you're working with are doing or that you're doing, but also call those people that are just going to be pumped with you and are going to sing your praises, are going to high five you through the phone, meet up with them, talk about all the great things that are happening, and then ask them about the great things that are happening. I know that it sounds really cheesy, but start journaling. There are so many people that do these gratitude journal prompts because they are a great way to accept that what is happening is good. There is so much good, and we need to not focus always on the challenges and the bads, but to help us. And in our current moment, we also just need to celebrate the good things that are happening. Who knows? Maybe you'll start a new practice that you really enjoy and you'll work on it every night and write out the great things that have happened. Sometimes we just also need to accept that we need to apologize. I go on what I call apology tours. I'm going around making up for the day that happened before when I didn't self-regulate very well. And I have to tell you that for my 6-year-old, this is a book that we read once a week, almost more for me than for him. You should all go purchase it right now. It's called How to Apologize by David LaRochelle. And it is so great because these little cartoon creatures go through life, they make mistakes, but then they authentically apologize. And it goes through in the book in a really smart, funny way, like lays out like, no, don't start your email by listing out all of the excuses you have for not responding. I did this today. I wrote out all these excuses and then I was like, nope, delete, delete, delete. I apologize for the late response. I'm so excited that we're going to get to work together, right? That's very different. So this book is one, again, not just for the kids in your life, but also for you. I think that after you read it, you'll kind of have a different perspective on those apologies that we make. So we have that accepting, and we also have changing. So whenever we focus on our world, yes, there's things that we have to accept. This is our moment. This is where we're at. Then there's those things that we can authentically change. So look around. What is in your sphere of control? What can you actually change right now? Like right this second. It's not going to involve sending 52 emails or involve talking everybody else into joining you. It's something that you can change right this second. And this is something that we talk about with kindergartners at our school and first graders. I was dropping off something in a classroom and this was on the back of the door. What a great reminder for first graders of what they can control and what they cannot control, but also what a great reminder for us. So yes, there are things within my very circle of control that I can change right now. I cannot control the millions of announcements at the end of the day at my school with all these buses. Nope. But what I can control is that I'm just going to stay focused on all of you and keep moving forward. Okay? As I smile. Oh, that's the last thing I was good. Okay. Something I can change, my physical space. This is my classroom, right? You're in it right now. During COVID, when we were here and I had these dividers up and everything felt so not me, I changed things in my space. I talked to people about painting the walls and I painted them this dark gray. All these cabinets behind me are this horrible red color actually. And I bought wood contact paper and I contact papered every single one of them because this is my space. I am in a windowless classroom for most of my day. It is something that I can change. It is something that I have control over. It is something that makes me feel better when I enter the space. All the fake plants that are surrounding me in this room make me feel like I am in a space that I belong in. It also is a great change for my students. They appreciate being in this space as well. So maybe it's about changing your physical space, organizing that pile that you've been putting off forever, or bringing in things that you care about into a space that feels just not your own. Or maybe change your space by like physically going outside. Just get out there, get out. And you have to make a plan for it. You can't just be like, oh, well, today I might. No, as you go into your day, say, today after school or today after work, today after I have sent the last email that I am going to send, I am going to go off and I am going to walk in nature. I'm going to feel connected. That's what this artist, an art teacher did. She's an artist and art teacher here in Ohio. And what she did is she made it a plan that she would meet friends to go for a walk out in nature. She would take pictures. She would write a haiku about her experience, and then she would work with her with Procreate on her iPad and work back into the photos that she took. And then she'd post them. So it was her way of like accountability by saying, I'm not only going to go out into nature, but I'm going to bring other people with me. And then I'm going to post about my experience in a creative way by working back into it. So change your space, go take a walk, be active in nature, just as one of the other attendees shared in the chat. Oh, and see, now it took me out of this again. Everything's fine. Sorry, let's go back. I love technology, right? And I can change it by doing this. Okay, see, I had a circle of control moment. I can control that. Okay, spending time with others. As I just said, it is something that you can do to change. Instead of just being by yourself, go schedule time to spend with other people. Write yourself permission slips. These are actually permission slips that you could buy, but write yourself a permission slip. Put it on a sticky note even, and put it on your mirror at home, and give yourself permission to not answer emails after your workday multiple times a week. Just give it a try. Give yourself permission to eat out when you're ready to eat out and you don't want to make meals again for everyone that you live with. That is me tonight. Giving yourself that permission to change. But also notice that change comes with grief. And this is something that has really impacted the way that I work with my fellow educators as well. There are things that I love. There are things that they love, that they don't want to see changed, because that's different, that's new, that's uncomfortable. And so even as you're making changes in your world, realizing that you might have a grief-filled experience about giving certain things up or letting certain things go, which is what we're going to talk about next. But notice that other art teachers and other arts educators are going to feel that way too. When we come to them about standards changes, state standards changes, it might change the way that they do things. And that might be really hard for them to do. When we have new initiatives, new plans that we're really excited about, coming into those spaces and realizing that they might not be, and that's going to take time for them, and to recognize that grief. It's changed the way that I view myself and why I react certain ways I do whenever I have to make a change. But it's also helped me really support the arts educators that I work alongside too, whenever there is going to be a big change for them as well. So just recognizing that in your spaces. Okay, the third one, leave. Okay, leaving is not the same thing as quitting. Okay, I just want to say that right now. I am not coming on here to be like, you're done, pack your bag, get out, right? No, we're not talking about quitting right now. We're talking about leaving. We're talking about leaving an experience. We're talking about leaving things behind. But no, I'm not encouraging everybody leaving their jobs, okay? Just so that we all understand that, all right? So remember those plans that you wanted to change, right? Like maybe in the change, you're like, yes, I'm going to change this. I'm going to change my entire environment. I'm going to start taking all these walks with people. Well, maybe you do actually need to just leave that for later. Maybe that's a for later thing. Maybe you need to focus on what's happening right now, and that thing that you're excited about, you do just set it aside for a moment. Maybe there's things that you need to handle later. Maybe there's something that is going to involve lots of people, and so you do want that change, but maybe we just set it right here. Don't get rid of it, but just leave it for later. Maybe you leave out reminders. Remember these guys, right? Working with students, working with others to create these artworks that we could frame and keep around as these reminders that we have for ourselves. Leave them out. That's why if you think about our office spaces and our classrooms and the spaces at home, that's why we keep mementos around, because they remind us of things. I have sticky notes from kids from like 5 years ago that I still have taped on a cabinet over here because of the fact that they matter to me. They remind me of that student and that situation that we were in. Working with another teacher in our building, we also created these as reminders. And we gave them to everybody in the entire building. Focus on today to prepare for tomorrow. Or again, that nobody is perfect, so I am not perfect. That little one is inside a seating card frame from the dollar store. And so they're all little teeny tiny things that we've been able to create and share with people, because sometimes having those physical reminders around us help us be able to move on to that acceptance and to that change. Or make a list and leave it alone for later. This was my suggestion for an art teacher who we were getting ready for summer, and she was already so focused and anxious about the next school year when we were, finishing up the school year we were in. And finally I said, all of your questions are valid. All of your feelings about this matter, but at this current moment, we're not ready to focus on that. Write them all out though, because then you're not going to fester on them and focus on them and spin in circles about them. Write them all down on a piece of paper so that we can come back to them later. So maybe that's something you do for yourself. When you make a list, you can then set it aside and come back to it later, especially with those things that aren't pressing, but there's something that you just can't get out of your mind, and then you're not able to move forward. So what is it that you need to leave? Is it a current position because you're dreaming of something bigger change? Is it a team? Is it a relationship? Is it something you need to leave out? Is it something that you need to leave for later? These are all important things for us to really consider as we're taking care of ourselves and we're learning to self-regulate. So this is when we would have broken out. What is one thing that I need to accept, change, or leave? And what is a first step in this process? Again, maybe it's as simple as writing out a list of things that you're going to handle later. Maybe it's as simple as a change or acceptance of where you're at right now. If you want to write in the chat your answer to these, or if any of the other panelists, moderator people have any other thoughts on this too.
I know that I'm notorious for having my work email on my phone. And I know that other people in this webinar are also probably in that space as well. That might be something to leave behind.
It might be something to leave behind. And then you're like, but what if, right? But what if, well, then you can get out the big internet on the laptop later, right? Like, right, I get it though, because I do too.
Right.
I have stopped myself from putting my email on my phone, my work email. I did. It was something that I definitely left. And I think it was when I switched jobs. Like I used to be a principal, and yeah, 100%. My work email was feeding into my phone and I had things I had to stay on top of. But the joke around here is there's no such thing as an arts education emergency. That's what we say. Like, if a parent needs something, if I'm not running a camp, if we're not running after school programming, I can thoughtfully get back to that person tomorrow. So if I know something is happening, then I make the effort to go through my browser on my phone and I log into my email that way. And then I log back out. So it's been something, it took a lot of effort to change, but I think it is definitely more healthy for me and my family, for sure.
Nina, thank you for that, because as I was at a community potluck meal last night, I was sending a unified arts schedule change for today for the last week of school, right? And of course I was doing it on my phone and I'm not listening to anybody around me. I'm not enjoying the meal because for some reason I had to do it at that moment instead of a half hour later when I'd be home, right?
Probably because you might forget about it. So that's when we set alarms. I'm like, I need to add this to my to-do list. And I'm like, you know what? 9 a.m. alarm tomorrow. So I know that when I'm at work, I will get the alarm with the 3 things I thought of as I'm making dinner, and then I leave it.
Yep. And that's the alarm of saying, and this is something that a brand new art teacher taught me, right? Thank you, young art teacher, is that I'd set alarms and then I'd be like, what was that alarm for? And she's like, no, you name the alarm, you name the alarm. So it pops up and it says like presentation or email to Joey's mom, right? So like, you name the alarm. And I was like, that is so brilliant. Why? Because again, my reminder on my phone never seems to work, but the alarm always does. So thank you for that reminder, Nina. One more,
I've been
Brady.
thinking a lot about, as we've been talking, I feel like I need to accept the actions of others and change the way that it affects me. A lot of times I want to change the behaviors of others when it's getting to me, but I need to accept what they do and then change how it's affecting me and change how I'm feeling about it and leave all that negativity kind of behind.
Oh my gosh, and isn't that so hard?
Yeah.
That's like a
lifelong pursuit.
Yes, that is a lifelong pursuit. And it's one of those things that I hope we're able to teach our children that we're working with and that we have in our lives, that very thing. But it's a challenge. It's something to work towards.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I keep putting them in the chat, keep sharing. I to kind of wrap up our time, and then if we have a little bit of extra time at the end, we can address some of the chat or any other Q&As, is that I actually just want to end by telling you about one of my students. And one of my former students named McKenna. She came to our school in kindergarten because we had just opened a specialized learning center for students with autism at our school, and we could offer her supports at our building that students, being a student at her home building, she couldn't get there. So McKenna came, and I have to tell you, the moment she got off the bus, I was like Team McKenna. I was all in. She had me wrapped around her finger with her like wit and her intelligence. She was super artistic and could draw the most incredible things. I was like all in, like Team McKenna. Okay? Well, in the 3rd grade, I and her teacher got together and were like, we should nominate her for Gifted in the Visual Arts, a practice we do here in Ohio. And we did. We helped her pull together a portfolio. She wrote about her work, and she submitted her portfolio, and she was identified as Gifted in the Visual Arts. And it was so exciting. And I was so excited for her. And she got this letter at home, and she brings it into me. And she's like, so what do I get for this? And I was like, oh, my encouragement. I'll tell you about contests and opportunities. I'll make resources available to you. You know, I'll support you. And she goes, you already do that. Do I get free food? No, not really. She's like, do I get money? And I was like, no, not really. And this little 3rd grader at the time goes, then what the heck did I do this for anyways? And she like walks out of the room. And I was like, oh my gosh, what did she do all this for? Like, what are we able to do? And now district-wide, we began to make strides to support our students that we're identifying and create opportunities. But for her in particular, what did she do? Well, right about this time is when I was named Ohio's Teacher of the Year, and I was creating a presentation to share, and I was pulling together all these images, and I was like, wait, this is a perfect opportunity to talk about McKenna and students like McKenna. And so I went to her and I said, McKenna, would you illustrate my presentation for me? And she did, and she does. So all of these little playful illustrations that you've seen throughout my presentation were all created by, at that time, a 3rd and 4th grader, a student who is twice exceptional. And they have such passion and energy and emotion and connection that I continue to share them years later. Because it's an opportunity for me to speak of her and to say that whenever we're creating presentations, whenever we're sharing about the teachers and the staffs that we work with, that also the students that we have are such an incredible resource to highlight and to celebrate. And McKenna didn't fully understand until on YouTube. She saw a presentation with her artwork in it, and she's like people actually watch things that you do. And I was like, yes. Thank you. And she's like, and I'm a part of it. It's like, yes, you are. So she did get her desire after all, because I did I offered to take her and her mom for dinner. So we would sit together and she would draw, and we went to her favorite restaurant, McDonald's. And she ate a Happy Meal while we drew along together. And it's just an incredible moment to highlight such a cool kid. So what do you do with any of this? Right? I've talked pretty much at you for the past hour. We haven't really done breakouts, but you've been sharing in the chat. What I hope you get from this is that this is an opportunity to start something fresh, either as we're ending the year or going into the summer, into the new year, to really focus on the adults, to take care of yourself as well as the other people around you. And it doesn't have to be big, splashy things. It could be the small moments that we build connections with other people and that we start something new and we invite other people to join us. This doesn't all have to be on you. This is about encouraging other people to appreciate and to elevate and to celebrate those other educators in their lives just as much. So I hope that what you've taken from this, again, are about the power of those small moments of building those connections. If you want to connect with me in other ways, shameless self-plug. I did a podcast called The Art of SEL. It's only 8 episodes. It's through the Art of Education University. You can check that out. I have a digital series called Drawing with Mr. J that was produced by our local PBS station that you can check out at wosu.org/Mr. J. And I had the opportunity to give a TED Talk that you can check out as well if you Google my name. And then here is my information. Please feel free to connect, to send an email, to ask questions, to ask about resources, and I would love to connect with you. And the other thing to accept change leave, and this is an acceptance thing, is sometimes I need polite reminders too. So if I don't respond right away, it's totally okay to nudge and be like, hey, did you forget about that thing? And I promise you I'll send it along.
Thank you so much, Jonathan. It was just fabulous to listen along with you. And I do greatly appreciate your authenticity and the genuine love and reverence you clearly hold for all of the young people that walk into your space, and even those that, you know, your colleagues serve as well. So really, really appreciate you taking the time to share yourself, your practice, and also challenge our thinking. I know that I'm thinking a little differently after listening and reflecting on some of the things that you shared with us. We do have some time, so if there's anyone in the group that wants to ask a question, or if there's something in the chat we can address, or someone wants to pick Jonathan's brain about anything, we do have that time to do that. If not, we're obviously not going to stay on here for the sake of staying on here. This is not a faculty meeting. But anyone interested in asking Jonathan a question? Or is there anything in the chat? Did anyone on staff notice anything in the chat?
Well, I will tell you, McKenna, after learning about her work being shared, and if you have questions, put them in the chat. She is in high school now, which is very wild. And she continually, every time I see her, she goes, "You still sharing my work?" And I go, "Yes, I am." She's very direct with me, and I appreciate that. And she's like, "Good, good." Her work is still equally as beautiful, a little darker, but still equally as beautiful. Okay, so do you have any insight into how gifted programs affect those labeled as non-gifted in terms of art and creativity? Ooh, that's fascinating, right? What's really interesting is we don't have a separate program, right? It's also something that we have created, like an after-school program that we offer once a quarter for students that have been identified as gifted or apprenticing, or that it's like they're in the screening pool, basically. So we've created this opportunity for them that it's just after school, it's free. They come together at one of our elementary schools and they make art with 2 or 3 of the art teachers. There's different plans. And so what we're hoping to do is, yes, it's something outside the space and time. Most of my students have no idea that it's happening. Actually, I would say 99.99% of students in our district have no idea that it's happening, because it's happening in that after school hours. It's not even at their own buildings. It's something additional that's happening. And there's lots of reasons for that. But those students that have go through the gifted process that are not identified, I'm part of that process, of course, right? So I'm part of that process, and we make sure to write really, really thoughtful narratives to those students that include things that we appreciated about their portfolios, things that we really connected with about any creativity or creative approaches that they took. So that way that it isn't focused just on this label. Instead, we are taking the opportunity to say, look at all this amazing work that you've done. And even though you're not getting this designation that for the longest time got nothing happened with it, now it's giving us an opportunity to celebrate the things that you've really done really beautifully within your portfolio. I'm not sure that's answering your question specifically, but that's how we're approaching it here. And those, like, we call them, like, what do we call them? Gifted master classes that are like once a quarter. So it's a very small group of kids that are in grades like 3rd through 6th, and they come together, and like one of them was on Sculpey clay and getting to like build a Sculpey and just like having free reign of material. One of them was on printmaking and different ways to do printmaking. So yeah, it's really interesting. And again, for us, it's such a small group that all of this stuff happens outside of the school day that, again, I don't think other kids even know it's a process that's happening, which is really good. My own daughter was identified in her school district. And again, it's not something that I think even her closest friends that she's been friends with even know about, which is interesting. But then you question, like, but shouldn't we celebrate it? Shouldn't we? So these are like the dilemmas of existence, right?
Jonathan, I just wanted to hop in. Hey, how everybody? I apologize for the tardiness. We had an emergency in district. The simplicity of the reminders that you just shared are just brilliant. Like, it's the little things that we forget. We get caught up in all the stuff. And I just want to appreciate what you shared and how you shared it and how you reminded us to just take a minute to take a deep breath. Sometimes it's about breathing and just doing the work, and it's okay to really take care of ourselves. I think you're right. We take care of everyone else and we kind of leave ourselves on the battery low button. And thank you, because I took a tidbit from there. I'm like, okay, I'm going to do that tomorrow because I got to go in the room and just take a minute, and it's okay because I deserve the minute just like everybody else does too. So thank you.
Yes, you do. And it's also, again, it's about the authenticity. For me, this stuff is authentic. It's who I am, right? If it's not you, find the you thing, right? And again, that's the case where toxic positivity versus optimism and hopefulness comes in, because like it is who I am. And people that know me know that it's authentic. People that may be new to our building or new to our team kind of have to like feel it out for a moment to be like, is this guy for real? Or like trying to figure out like the why behind it. But then once you have those connections, then those authentic moments of little reminders for them, little reminders for you. There's things that will work really well for you that might not for me, but it's taking the time to figure those out.
Well, I think with that, I see lots of thanks and appreciation for you, Jonathan, in the chat. So I just want to share that our next town hall meeting will happen in October. And if any one of the participants is interested in stepping up to collaborate for future town hall meetings, we're always looking for fabulous collaborators. And on behalf of those of us collaborating on this call, we want to offer a warm-hearted thank you for everyone for joining us today, and especially you, Jonathan. And we look forward to seeing you at our next town hall. Thank you.
Do you want me guys to just end it?
Yeah, I was gonna wait for the last 3 attendees.
Oh,
We can-
sorry.
Yeah. Oh, 2.